Hey, it's Jay. How about another short-lived detective show? This time I want to talk about Get Christie Love from 1975, the first network drama to feature a black female lead. It's not very well known despite its status, and I think it's an interesting show for a lot of reasons. But before we get going, a disclaimer. I am not equipped with the knowledge to talk about this show in any academic or cultural context. I tend to approach the shows I look at as they are, and those things are frequently old-fashioned and sensitive minorities, if not out-and-out harmful. While I do not believe any of the episodes do anything overtly racist, no one tries to touch her hair, I also don't have the full context, so I may miss some microaggressions or other stereotypes. If I do, it was unintentional. I'm doing my best to be respectful, so let me know if I missed anything. Alright, let's get started with the pilot movie. Get Christie Love was a 1974 TV movie about a sassy black woman cop played by Teresa Graves. It is fine. It is a 1970s television movie trying to jump on the blaxploitation trend with all that entails. Lighting is bad, it's frequently boring, Christie Love has to pose as a prostitute, and a running gag involves her boss trying to get into her apartment after work for a nightcap. The plot centers around a criminal's black book, and they assume this woman has it, and it turns out it is her. She has an eidetic memory, and while they try to get her away from the baddie, she gets shot, and the movie ends with her slowly dying in a school parking lot while watching her son, who she's never met, practice football. It does establish Christie as being absolutely fearless. 3 times she just walks up to the woman and starts spilling why she's there and what she knows, which seems pretty foolhardy, but it works out in her favor every time. Well, okay, not every time, because at one point a man comes to kill her pretending to be room service, and she manages to trick him into plummeting off the balcony. Christie has a real egalitarian approach, able to speak more directly with people because she's the last thing they expect, a black policewoman. She gets to be very disarming, but also she has a lot more empathy than you'd expect. She goes to AA to talk to this former coworker of the eidetic memory lady, and this woman opens up to her and even calls her after relapsing. And Christie feels deeply for this woman, which makes it all the more unfortunate when she gets shot for acting too drunk around some guys with guns. She didn't deserve that. There's this weird interaction with this odd caricature of a person, this androgynous hippie who is on the weed and wants to believe she's down with black people, but doesn't understand why one would become a cop. She also goes into a lady's boudoir and judges her mood machine.
Tacky lady.
It's an interesting movie, unique for its time with a charming lead, but meandering and fairly dull. I do like that the mob boss is just really into Japanese stuff, getting the boys together to watch samurai movies. Adorable. Several months passed and Get Christie Love was picked up for a full series. Teresa Graves returns as Christie, but it seems she had a bit of a spiritual awakening between this movie and the show, and refused to do anything remotely interesting. I don't know what plots they had to rewrite, but if it prevented them from just wasting 4 minutes with a pointless gunfight, I'm for it. She still manages to be badass without needing to get into shootouts. The show is broken into 2 eras, the early season where she's working under Captain Matt Reardon, with co-workers Joe Caruso and Steve Belmont, and the later season where she is transferred to another department with Captain Arthur Ryan, and is partnered up with Pete Gallagher, and we still see Steve sometimes. The early season is a lot more serious with real drama and pathos and a lot of people struggling with their awful situations. The later season kind of completely abandons all that for a more comedic bend, the situations growing more outlandish and leading on some more vaudeville-like antics. I'm going to talk about the 2 halves separately, each with their own fun list. Let's start with the first half, obviously. First, some bad news. The first 3 episodes of Get Christie Love are likely lost media, as is episode 12, which is too bad. Some of these plots sound like they would have been pretty fun. Christie gets framed for a crime, needing to go to flight school to stop a criminal computer genius. But no, these episodes were not aired during the Christie Love marathon they ran on Centric in 2014, the only known source of Get Christie Love. Even on the DVD set from the mildly sketchy business I paid $30 to send me some DVD-Rs of the episode, the Centric logo is still prominently in the corner. So we only have 8 episodes from the Reardon Era, and it has some real melodrama to show us and dangerous situations to put Christie in. From least to most personal danger Christie Love is in, the early episodes of the season. This is one of the more dull adventures and focus on one of our supporting casts, Officer Caruso, who is Italian. Oh my god, this guy is so Italian, but he's one of the good ones. Not like those mafia characters, like Frankie Romano, this no-good piece of shit who they just happen to see trying to kill a guy and the whole episode revolves around trying to get information from him, while the mafia tries to kill him before he does. It's laborious, really, and they keep calling each other paisanos, which is distracting.
Hey, paisan.
Hey, paisan.
Paisano, hey, paisanos!
But the only thing Christie does is emotional label for her dipshit cop friend who didn't report that his father was being leaned on by the mob, and at one point a mobster comes at her with a knife, and she just bodies him immediately. This episode focuses on our other friend, Steve, who is receiving an award for stopping a bank robbery and that somehow got him on the hit list from a notorious assassin, the Shark, who faked his own death and got plastic surgery and just keeps murdering his way through the city to complete his goal. You know, buddy, killing everyone who might know you're a specific man is just going to raise more flags than just acting confused and saying they got the wrong guy. Like, it's even implied you murdered this poor lady who really wanted to fuck you because she bothered you on your way to an assassination? She didn't deserve that. So Christie is on his tail the entire time because even though the Shark is dead, she's just got a sense he might have gotten plastic surgery and still out there, and wants to kill Steve specifically. There is very little evidence to support this, and yet they get a full security complement together for the event, and the Shark almost succeeds anyway by crawling into a rather spacious air duct so it can kill Steve from inside the walls. Christie finds him and shoots him because she's a diligent security officer.
You under arrest, sugar.
I guess I was aiming at the wrong person.
Yeah, whatever, loser. Oh hey, it's Frank Sinatra Jr.
I can beat the great Vic Dayton to the bone.
Okay, that was Frank Sinatra Jr., but he is the latest victim of evil music producer James O'Neill, who does this kind of thing to all his singers. So it's up to Christie to act as brazen as possible to get into the organization and check it out. O'Neill suspects she's a cop right away, and her cover is blown in like 2 days, but at least she discovers this lady was being held hostage in a sanitarium. This woman escapes, and it leads to a dramatic helicopter chase. And then it's revealed that it was all a setup, and O'Neill didn't even kill Frank Sinatra Jr. This lady did, for love reasons. This is the episode to watch if you want to see Teresa Graves sing an entire song.
Find myself drowning in my own tears. Ooh,
But otherwise it's kind of a mess. Stakes are all over the place. If this guy is such an evil monster, why did he sacrifice himself for this woman? Christie gets assigned to a new team. This happens all the time. They just move her around to where the most interesting plot can happen. But this time it's to a task force under Marker, who's just a real asshole, a misogynist, racist jerk. Don't worry, he comes around.
I'm even getting used to meter maids. The idea of women policemen.
Women police officers.
All right, women police officers.
And eventually writes her a recommendation, and she calls him a pussycat.
Why, you big pussycat.
Christie impresses him by figuring out this unhoused man down on Skid Row was killed by the gang Marker's team was going after, showing some basic empathy for another human being when Marker couldn't be bothered. This leads them to names and locations, but when the trail runs cold, Christie once again storms into the room as loudly as possible to talk directly to the criminal mastermind, who agrees to meet her at a secondary location so they could try to kill her with a bulldozer. You know, normal police stuff. She earned that accommodation. In this one, Christie and the gang are standing around in an empty airplane hangar watching people pretend to go through customs. They're looking for a known criminal contact, Joe Santiago, who's traveling to LA to meet the bad guy. Turns out Joe Santiago is a sexy black lady who immediately gets mowed down in traffic after exiting the airport. So I guess we aren't going to be able to contact our kingpin until Christie has a crazy idea. Nobody's seen this lady, right? So how about she pose as Joe Santiago and go meet whomever? Reardon is against it, it's wildly irresponsible, but they do it anyway, including passing her info during a traffic stop and using police intimidation to get this guy to lie. So she makes it to the big boss, who reminds her that the reason he called her was because she's a hitman and needs her to kill this other guy for business reasons. Well, Christie can't do that, and after a real bad situation when one of Joe's friends shows up and starts assaulting her, she knocks him out and goes to the target and reveals she's an undercover cop in too deep and she needs his help to get them both out alive. And then they ran out of time in the episode and backup shows up and arrests everyone. It is a good thing Christie knows some kind of martial art, otherwise who knows how much trouble she'd be in. Christie and the guys all have another friend from the academy. He was just going to the bathroom all the other times they've hung out, Dave Thomas, and he's hawking burgers at the cop bar. He's not a cop himself. No, he had to resign because of family issues, his poor dead dad, the Sarge. Except this is all a lie. His dad is still alive and under the impression Dave is on force because Dave keeps lying that he is, because in addition to being a complete loser, he's also a Dexter, doing vigilante murders against people who escape justice. Just gone completely off the deep end. Unrepentant and convinced killing the bad guys will fix the problems. So Christie's on the detail to find this serial killer, which requires her going undercover into the prostitution ring by going to the Crystal Ballroom. This is apparently a thing that used to exist when men could pay hired dancers $1 to get a woman's attention for 5 minutes. It sounds like a genuinely awful job.
No, all you have to know around here is how to keep your toes from getting squashed, your shins from getting kicked, and your ribs broken. Think you can handle it?
And this guy was just waiting for someone fun to dance with. He's got so many coupons. Christie eventually gets away from this maniac to talk to their lead, who spills immediately, and then she catches sight of the man running this entire illegal operation and walks right up to him, demanding he take her to dinner so they can talk business. She does this a lot. They arrest this guy for being stupid enough to confess to crimes and realize that their serial killer might be a cop, and they immediately start shutting up about it. Christie is told to go talk to the psychologist on staff about this, see if anyone fits the profile, who on the force has the capability of being the Punisher. Well, bad news everyone. Everyone in the police force matches the profile. It could be literally any one of them.
And the descriptors narrowed us down to 800 working police officers. And guess what? We all made the list. And in alphabetical order. Belmont, Caruso, Love, and Reardon.
Even Christie. Even Christie. Christie Love. Confirmed bastard. Eventually, Christie figures out it's Dave, goes to his house and talks to the Sarge, who pretends he doesn't know his son is a huge failure before Christie tells him to knock it off. It's pretty clear Dave is probably the serial killer, so she decides to take him up on his rain check to go shooting sometime, and they go to Hogan's Alley. Like from the video game, but in real life. I guess this also was a real thing. They have a tense standoff, and then some people show up and take him into custody. And then instead of seriously thinking about how literally any one of them could snap and become a vigilante murderer themselves, Christie instead acts weird about being assigned to Chinatown. Hey, did you like that adventure where Christie single-handedly tracks down a serial killer and has to confront them on an emotional level? Great, here it is again. This particular version unfortunately involves a black albino getting his revenge for his murdered sister and having a really long speech about how tormented he feels being a passing black man, and this is absolutely just some white guy, so we are just going to move on. Christie has to go to a rural town to pick up a suspect, but the sheriff is too busy with one of his deputies being murdered to expedite her case. It's always a big deal when a cop gets murdered, especially when the cop is the brother of a racist biker gang leader who is forming a small mob outside the sheriff's office. They have a suspect, a Hispanic man who decided to leave town suddenly, and the sheriff is prepared to railroad him when Christie decides to help with the investigation. Of course, this does not go over great with the biker gang, who warn her to leave town, and when she doesn't, they find her when her car breaks down and try to murder her. So this is an outrageous scene to put on television, a literal hate crime, but Christie handles it with her usual vague martial arts and sassiness. She also has a run-in with Hick, who shoots at her car, but she draws her sidearm at him and he apologizes, saying he was aiming for a jackrabbit, then makes a vague threat before she tells him to fuck off and throws his shotgun into the road. Not sure what the plan is there, he can still recover that, it's just in the middle of the road. Anyway, it was this guy's other deputy who did it. They were running a coyote scheme with the biker gang, smuggling in illegal immigrants, these hypocritical racist hicks, making money help people they hate come into the country for a rough life in the fields, all while palling around with guys with swastikas on their vests. Somehow we're supposed to believe they were running this operation without our hunk sheriff's knowledge. This is a huge deal. This entire department was rotten to the core. We need to report this to the state. But I guess we're done here. Back to the city with Christie. This was terrifying, actually. First, some bad news. There were no missing episodes of the later half of the show. I'm mostly joking. The Ryan Era episodes are pretty entertaining. There are some zany things that happen, but it definitely doesn't purport itself as a serious police show anymore. The tone shifts to a more comedic bent, with the addition of Captain Ryan, a grouchy captain who is always calling Christie into his office after her latest antics, and Peter Gallagher, a writer cop with connections to Hollywood who is trying to get a script sold. The three of them become the core of the show, and it starts to feel like an office comedy at times, just leaning into shtick and putting poor put-upon Gallagher into more and more embarrassing situations. From least to most ridiculous plot, the latter half of Get Christie Love. There is one script that they had left over from the Reardon Era, in which Christie breaks up a domestic incident in her building in the boldest way I've ever seen. She yells at them through the door and demands to hear from the woman, and once she opens the door, she beelines over to take a look at the man's face so that he is absolutely clear that she saw him. Holy shit, she is such a badass. The lady goes missing in the morning, and Christie gets a call from her asking for help that leads her to a dark alley where she is shot at by an assassin. They exchange fire and he gets mowed down by a truck. All these witnesses appear to accuse Christie of police brutality. When they discover the idea of the man as a notorious hitman, Ryan sends her and Gallagher off to San Francisco to pick up a suspect until things cool down. Then Christie sees the man from the other night in the paper and heads back to the precinct to set up a sting on him because he's a politician positioning for governor, Charlie Bettman, and something hinky is going on. This man immediately tries to bribe her. This guy spends literally every second lying, but Christie is clever and constantly calls him out on it. Eventually tells him she just wants proof the lady's alive. He says she is, and he'll take Christie to her. He just needs some time. The sting is in full swing, as Captain Ryan and this mustache lieutenant watch over Bettman at this fancy gala, where he sets up this obvious attempt to murder Christie. Yeah, sure, the hospital is out here in the middle of nowhere in the pouring rain. You should have had your gun ready, Christie. It's fine, the cops are tailing them the entire time, although they do have issues with the gate. But they get him and are able to take him down, and also some rich asshole who bribed him to get away with murder, a detail Bettman just spills to Christie for no particular reason. You were going to kill her, man? She's a cop. Did you miss the fact that she was a cop? She's obviously bugged. I just realized that this is the least wacky plot of these episodes. This is our introduction to Captain Ryan, a decorated, prideful captain that is overly concerned about media scrutiny and does not want to see the names of her officers in the paper, which is a problem because Christie Love is the favorite topic of a local journalist. Nice guy, but a bit slow on the uptake. Ryan assigns her and Gallagher to go chase down a missing police motorcycle, but unfortunately a gunfight with the drugstore bandit breaks out and Christie gets shot. She's fine because the drugstore bandit didn't shoot to kill, and this leads Christie to conclude he's a good guy. Turns out he's an addicted Vietnam vet, and his wife pleads to Christie to get her husband to turn himself in before it's too late. They find the motorcycle. It had been stolen by this 10-year-old boy, who was charging people to watch him jump it into a lake. Christie returns the bike, but steals it again to go talk down the drugstore bandit who has been cornered in the park, and Ryan congratulates her on her good work and assigns her a new case. This one is unusual.
This one I think you'll find to be more, shall we say, unusual.
They couldn't actually think of a good idea, so they just go out on that. There's a big rematch between Bobby Riggs and Rosemary Cassell, who did not play each other in the famous Battle of the Sexes match. She was a commentator on that match, but there was no way in hell Billie Jean King was going to work with Bobby again. And the promoter behind the event needs some extra security, so he calls Captain Ryan to ask if they have any staff to spare, and Christie Gallagher are just hanging out. So he sends them because what harm could they do? Turns out a loan shark was murdered and the $250,000 pot goes missing, and Christie suggests the cash was tossed out a car window on live TV, which leads to a run on the park. Then a bunch of stuff happens and Gallagher snores and someone tries to murder Christie again, and I wasn't really paying attention because I got distracted by the fact that they got the actual Bobby Riggs for this episode, and they didn't use him for the entire second half of the episode. But we'll talk about Bobby Riggs later. We get to meet someone from Christie's old neighborhood, a man who has been framed for a crime and was just now getting out, and his mother is very concerned he's going to try to kill the man who did it to him, so she gets Christie's help. To be fair, Barney Oblansky is a bit of an ass. He's super shady and keeps hanging out with people from his old life and just treating Christie like shit. So when the mob guy ends up dead and an eyewitness places him at the scene, it looks bad for Barney. Fortunately, they realize it's super weird that the witness waited 4 hours before reporting the murder, and also a number of other factors that mean there's only one solution to this problem: boat chase. There's this guy who was doing a bunch of weird heists, Marty Hazard, who steals a bunch of jewelry from fancy events and then sells them back to the insurance companies, and Christie is going undercover on the runway to catch him. Hazard bursts into the room through a chute and starts demanding they hand over the jewels, taking several girls hostage to get them to do things for him and help his escape. This guy keeps peeling off ladies one by one, and unfortunately for us, Christie wasn't even selected as a hostage, intentionally passed over even. She's trying to track Hazard down, which requires her visiting a bunch of criminal weirdos. There's this guy who has an assassin nearby in case someone's coming after him. There's Lucian Crocker, a fence with a wacky demeanor who gets Christie in trouble for harassing him, while Gallagher takes advantage of his hospitality. There's Zigzag Mullins, who runs to an electrical box and dies. There's Jimmy, the retired burglar with mangled hands who runs the go-kart track, and is also secretly behind the Hazard robberies because he's a criminal mastermind. Anyway, all this ends in a gunfight where Gallagher pretends to be dead so they can trick Hazard, and then they bring him in. Hurrah! Our fancy jewelry shows will now be safe from everyone being stressed out from an improbable heist. This maintenance man in Las Vegas just kind of stumbles across an IRS agent wiretapping some criminals having a heart attack, and steals the tape with the incriminating info to blackmail this kingpin. This plan requires him to go aground, which worries his brother, Bobby Hill.
That's my purse! I don't know you!
Not that one. This one is a precocious tyke who hunts down Christie to get her help because she's a sister, and he doesn't trust regular cops. This one is kind of pure Looney Tunes. Bobby Hill steals Christie Love's car to drive to Las Vegas, and someone gets tossed off a roof. Real shenanigans. I feel like every other show from the 70s has an episode with a sassy black child, and they are usually underwhelming. We're going to Europe. A touring company is murdering their clients while they're overseas and using their coffins to smuggle stuff into the country. Diamonds or drugs or something. So we have no other choice but to all go undercover on a tour through Europe, driving past a lot of stock footage, fall off a castle. Gallagher spends an uncomfortable amount of time trying to get this tour guide to sleep with him, but it's fine because she's actually a honeypot who kills him. But it turns out he's not dead, and they break into the morgue and find the drugs. And then for some reason they do an extra sting to find the people really responsible for the smuggling plot. It feels unnecessary, but at least it gives us a chance to do a car chase and see Gallagher naked. Fun fact, this episode features 6 guests from the TV show Laugh-In, the show where Teresa Graves got her start, and they all get mostly straight roles. That is very cute. They got the gang back together for this goofy episode. We are at the football game, and the football explodes. Turns out there's a mad bomber in town. It's probably this guy. Something about this guy seems off. He's leaving tapes at the crime scene with cryptic clues about his next target. He's spelling something. We're in acrostic territory. That's how you know he's a maniac. They figure out this guy is anti-war, so he's indiscriminately bombing soft targets. Very clear and coherent political messaging. Anyway, his target is a toy convention, which Christie figures out and manages to get the bomb squad there in time. Now she's on the Mad Bomber's radar, and he sends a bomb to the police station directly to Christie, who leaves it in the boss's office, where it goes off. Fortunately, it was a little one, a little bomb, so instead of the captain being killed, he just gets some pottery shards in his ass. Hilarious. They figure out that the creepy guy at every crime scene is the Mad Bomber, and they chase after him to try to talk him down, so he explodes. And then we go out on a joke about how Captain Ryan somehow killed his sister's plants. This show could be very strange tonally. Gallagher has a wacky uncle, and this guy is an absolute piece of shit. He has been under the impression that his favorite nephew was the captain of the station and starts trying to throw Gallagher's authority around during a visit. Which means he needs a talking to about how police rank actually works, and maybe don't talk to my coworkers that way. Uncle Harry still wants to hang out though. He even brought a date. This real piece of work has decided that they are all one big family now. Her and this guy she met at the bus station, and his nephew and the nephew's coworker. Found family is just the first 3 people you meet. Uncle Harry continues to ruin Gallagher's life by posing as him after upping up some guy trying to help with the robbery case. He continues to not listen to anybody, and when he accidentally hears a confession, he decides to take care of the problem himself because he just feels so useless and he wants to be helpful.
But it's not nice when people make you feel old. It's not nice to be just one of those few excess people.
This still doesn't justify anything because of course his ass gets kidnapped and his life is put in danger and Gallagher has to go save him, but then Gallagher is in danger during this extended chase through the brush, and I guess we're equal now. Uncle Harry isn't going to jail for impersonating an officer, endangering his own life, and being a complete idiot. Hopefully this woman who has glommed onto him will temper his madness. I don't have high hopes though. So, Christie and Gallagher on airport duty this week. Didn't know that was something they did. I thought she was a police investigator and he was his beat cop escort, but hey, they work at the airport now, which is unfortunate because Gallagher has just been kidnapped by Gomez Addams. He's holding Gallagher hostage with this other guy, and he needs Captain Ryan to take him to London right now. He has a delivery that he can't get through customs, and this is the only way he can think of to do it. And brother, I don't think that's true. This seems pretty cavalier. Maybe just get a private plane. A lot of loose ends here. But somehow he managed to get Captain Ryan to just get him on the plane. He didn't even get tickets. He expected to use the police captain's power, and he's going to blow up Gallagher if Ryan doesn't play along. Luckily, Christie was at the airport and talked her way onto the plane to keep an eye on them. There's a lot of business, a lot of comedic business. Gallagher talks his captor into abandoning him to be exploded by the bomb, and he just runs away while still chained to the bedstand. They land in London, and John Aston gets away through trickery, and then they go to Scotland Yard and figure out who this guy was. It's some gentleman thief type, and the mysterious cargo that he couldn't get through customs was a stamp collection. This old man was going to pay him $4 million so he could browse through his stamp collection. Anyway, they find him. For some reason, this guy points a gun at them. Not sure what's going on here. I'm sure it's something stupid. And then they make Christie fly back to America while wearing the air stewardess outfit. She doesn't work here. Why are you forcing her to play the plain piano? Why is there a plain piano? Is this a 70s thing? There used to be pianos on planes. We have fallen so far. As you expect, the vibes of this are fairly funky. It's a black police officer show, and the opening credits absolutely want you to know that.
If it's trouble, she's your girl. Get Christie Love. Get Christie Love. Get Christie Love.
The score has the usual assortment of 70s specific instruments: bassoons, triangles, piccolos, waka waka guitar.
There it is.
It does skirt a little too close to Scooby-Doo music, but it was the 70s. The show itself is dingy. Everyone at the police station wears a stuffed shirt and looks as white as possible, all to contrast the absolute amazing fit of Christie Love. She has so many costume changes and she is stunning in nearly all of them. They know how to dress her. She wears a lot of orange, darker shades, but they pop. Plus she gets a number of going undercover outfits, and those are all pretty cute. She wears this one inspired outfit while checking in on the docks. Head turner for sure. Other than that, the show doesn't have any noticeable flourishes, except perhaps for the over-reliance on the joke to freeze frame ending. They try so often, and they fail a lot. These bits are always just awful. A little sour pickle to go out on, not a great decision. Christie Love is a pretty good police officer. Like, she's still absolutely a police officer, but she's able to keep her cool in a great number of worrisome situations, always trying to de-escalate when she can, but responsive when things get violent. Just such a sense of presence who is able to extract control in pretty much any situation, while also having a lot of grace and warmth in her approach. She's always trying to do the right thing. She might be a bit of a loose cannon, but she's always checking in and making sure her superiors know what's going on. She's pretty thorough with her work, chasing down leads wherever she can, although she has the tendency to have people just come directly to her protagonist energy pulling them in. She also jumps to a lot of conclusions. There was no reason to believe the shark was still active, or her vendetta against O'Neill leading her to investigate when there was no reason to. It's like she knows the plot of the episode sometimes, and most of the time when she's actually solving a mystery, it kind of comes out of nowhere. And of course her go-to move of just being the hottest person in the room and demanding the attention of whoever she wants to talk to. Great move if you get away with it, but hey, she can. Just absolutely fearless. It's very charming. We rarely see Christie Love not at work. All of the character episodes are typically focused on somebody else. One of her coworkers having a crisis, one of her friends from the academy, or her old neighbor. And we never hear about her family or any friends she has outside of work. She is fully committed to being a police officer. It's all she talks about. It's hard to get a real read on who Christie Love is. Why does she act the way she does? What's her past? And maybe they explore it more in those lost episodes, but based on the episode only available on the DVD-Rs I bought, Christie doesn't think about herself much. In the episode with the black albino guy, she is teamed up with someone from HR who wants to do a little piece on her, get the story of the Christie Love that is such a big deal in all the papers. He asks her how it feels being a black policewoman, a first, and she responds by naming 5 other black policewomen. Sure, she's the first black woman detective, but she doesn't think that's about her. She's just following in the steps of those who came before. We also learn that she didn't even want to be a cop. She was just a regular girl, wanting regular girl things.
I had the usual dreams, you know, a nurse, a model, becoming the wife of some terrific man. After a while, that seemed unimportant.
Interesting line, that. There isn't a single love interest in the show, this likely due to Teresa Gay's religious beliefs, but it gives Ace vibes. Then she was getting into a little trouble with the girls and met Iris Alexander, who let her off the hook and bought them all hot dogs and took Christie down to the station to look around. And ever since then, being a police officer has been her calling. And you gotta admit, she does it well. She's stopped a lot of nonsensical crime and serial killers. But this story of her life feels insubstantial. Like maybe all the white men writing this black woman character didn't know how to characterize her properly. It does feel weird that she never mentions her parents or siblings or anything. The only childhood friend we see is some white guy who was in the clink for a bit, but this isn't that bad a neighborhood. From what I can tell, she just never hangs out with black people at all, except that one journalist. Not to mention that she seems to have the same mindset and ideology of all the other cops on the force. It's weird, she just kind of happens to be a black woman, for demographic reasons, and it only ever comes up if she's in the country and comes across a bunch of neo-Nazis. She even insists on being called a police person. It's an interesting way to handle this character.
Life exploits a police person, Christie Love.
I would suggest maybe hiring a black person to write for her, maybe, but hey, as it is perfectly clear, it was the 70s. The retool of the series still didn't improve ratings, and Christie Love was canceled after 1 season, leaving behind a limited cultural impact. I had not heard of the show before this year, and you likely haven't either, unless it was from me. But it did have an impact. The first black woman serving on a state police force says the show inspired her to continue her career, and she seems like a nice lady. Oh, also apparently in this scene in Reservoir Dogs, everyone has seen the show?
She looked like Christie Love. Remember that TV show, Get Christie Love, about the black female cop? Shows used to say, "You under arrest, sugar."
Huh. There was a reboot attempt in 2017 in which Christie would be the head of an elite CEI unit, but they didn't order the series out of pilot, which is good because it sounds kind of terrible and generic. I also could not find this pilot with a cursory search, but hey, if you know a guy. Otherwise, a cute little show. I do like that it got a little zany and didn't really lean on any terrible stereotyping or anything. She doesn't have any racist caricature friends to worry about. It still has all the other 70s hallmark of slow pace and cheap camera work, but otherwise serviceable. I mean, George Kurgo, the creator, still got work after this, wrote an episode of Mr. Smith, the TV show about an intelligent orangutan that worked for the government. But I think as a last thing to do before giving up acting, I think Teresa Graves did a great job. She has a lot of character, very warm, very natural, effortlessly amazing. I think Christie Love is great. Glad I have seen it. Anyway, bye. I've got a Patreon. Anything would be great. Capitalism is a right bastard. Keep the spirit of Columbo in your hearts, dedicated to the truth and to holding rich assholes accountable. You're under arrest. Sugar.